we go down the path of like more deep engineering topics. But before that, I want to remind all of you that JobJit is also available on the Q&A stage. So if you have posted some questions and you want to interact live, then also immediately now you can go to this stage. So that's one of the things I want to announce. And also there is a workshop going on that you can check out now, which is going to be hosted on the third floor about the startup ecosystem and how you can like create your company. So you can check that out on the third floor as well. And with that, I'm going to announce our next speaker, who's a true technologist and engineer, so somebody who's actually built a lot of stuff. So he has been one of the key engineers at Google on the Chrome browser, which is of course a fantastic browser we all use. And he's now exploring that path further with Electron, a framework for how you can build desktop apps with web technologies and frameworks, which looks really cool, which I had a chance to check out over the last few days, which a lot of the most popular apps that you've been using all the time, such as like Skype, Slack, and others are using. And he's an engineer also coming from Silicon Valley to join us. So please welcome Jeremy Apthorp, who is now with Slack as well. Thank you very much for joining us here.
So I'm going to tell you about building your next app with Electron. So hi everyone, welcome to Techsylvania. Today, I want to convince you to build your next app with Electron. And I just want you all to raise your hand if you've built a website before. If you've written JavaScript, CSS, HTML, build a web app. Great, that's a lot of you. I guess the web's pretty popular these days. So I'm going to cover three things. First, I'm going to tell you what Electron is. I'm going to convince you why Electron is the best tool to build desktop apps. And I'm going to tell you how you can get started today. Before I jump into it, you might be wondering, who is this person? So my name's Jeremy, or Nornagon on the internet. I work at Slack full-time on Electron. And previously, I've been at Google on the Chrome team. And when I'm not at work, I make video games. So if you want to ask me about that in the Q&A afterwards, that's cool too. So first, what is Electron? Electron's an open source project that combines the core of Chromium, the open source browser that Google builds, with the JavaScript runtime Node.js. And it adds a sprinkling of cross-platform APIs that give you access to native operating system features like creating windows, sending notifications, or accessing the clipboard. The Electron open source project began at GitHub as a tool for them to build their code editor, Atom. But now there are more than 200 contributors to the Electron open source project, including a lot of full-time employees from GitHub, from Microsoft, which contains GitHub now as of recently, Slack, and Atlassian, as well as many people who work on Electron in their spare time. This combination of web technology with full access to the operating system lets you use the foundation of web technology that you already know, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, plus all of the libraries that you're used to using for making web apps like React and TypeScript, to build apps that don't look much like web apps at all. Electron gives you the tools to build desktop apps with web technologies. And you're not limited to making traditional desktop apps either. This is an app that just lives in your system tray, and when the user clicks on it, it'll show you pop up this shaped window like a speech bubble and tell you the weather. And you can get that example. That's open source code on GitHub. Or this is a launcher app, which stays hidden until the user presses a global keyboard shortcut. And this runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. It's a really cool project called Hain. Or even new kinds of interactions that haven't yet been invented. This is a really cool app called SVJesus. And this is an interaction which I've never seen in any app, Electron or otherwise, before this. So you grab that SVG file and you drag it through that app, and as you drag it over, it gets converted into code that you can just paste into your code editor. So I think this really demonstrates that Electron gives you full access to all of the power of the operating system. So you might be thinking, why build a desktop app? If the web is good enough for Gmail and Facebook, surely it's good enough for my app too. And that might be true. The web is a really great platform. It brings a lot of advantages. And it works for a huge variety of apps. But I think there are 3 big reasons that you might want to consider building a desktop app, as well as, or even instead of, a web app. And the first reason is power. The web is a restricted platform by design. Web apps can't access the file system or hardware devices that might be connected to the computer, or open listening sockets. There's just a lot of stuff that web apps cannot do by design. And if your app needs any of those features, then you have to build a desktop app. Even if your app doesn't need those features, you might want to build a desktop app to help users to find your app. Getting featured in the Windows App Store or the Mac App Store, or getting your game into Steam can make a huge impact to the success of your project. And if you don't have a desktop app, then you can't be in any of those stores. So building a desktop app can really help users to find your app. And the last reason I'm going to mention that you might want to consider building a desktop app is to build an app that sticks. It's very easy for a user to visit a website one time and just never come back again. But if that user has an icon for your app on their desktop or in their dock on Mac, it's very easy for them to just click that app and come back into your experience. So if you want to build a desktop app, why use Electron as opposed to one of the other technologies that you could use to build a desktop app? And I think the bottom line is this. Electron enables you to build apps that your users will love. If you're a team of less than 100 people, Electron lets you stand on the shoulders of giants to build an app that your users will love. The Chromium project is one of the largest open source projects in the world, and Google has poured billions of dollars into making Chromium a robust and high-performance engine for the web. And with Electron, you also get access to the largest repository of open source software in the world, NPM. There are nearly 700,000 packages on NPM doing everything from machine learning to MIDI input to USB control. And there are more than 500 new packages added every day. Chances are, if you want to do something, then there's a package on NPM to help you do that. There's a huge community of developers building open source tools with Electron. So over 2,000 of those packages on NPM are Electron specific, including some that Slack maintains. If you want some more examples of these, I encourage you to check out that list of awesome Electron projects. You can see a whole bunch of apps, tools, documentation, guides, videos that people have made that are open source and freely available. In particular, a lot of the things that are hard to do with traditional desktop app development frameworks are provided by tools that the Electron community maintains. So keeping your app up to date on users' machines, gathering crashes that happen in the wild and being able to debug and fix them, creating Windows installers and DMG bundles for Mac, and debugging and profiling your app on users' machines. All of these things have really good support from the Electron community. So Electron is with you every step of the way of your app's lifecycle, from the development to the deployment to the debugging to the updating. It doesn't finish just at development. And speaking of development, the tools that you use as a developer are a huge part of what enables you to be productive and efficient. And the web has the best developer tools of any platform. And those tools work great in Electron. So this is a screenshot of the Slack app with the dev tools open, and you can just select an element in there and tweak a style, immediately see the changes, inspect the elements and debug a layout issue, or profile your code, set a breakpoint. All of those tools that you're used to using from building web apps are right there for you in Electron. And if you're using hot module reload to see the changes in your app immediately, as soon as you save the source code, that works great in Electron too. It's really powerful to be able to edit your source code, just save the file and immediately see the update in your app. So Electron, like the web, is cross-platform. You don't have to write 3 apps, one for Mac, Windows, and Linux, to get access to all of those platforms. You just write your app one time and it works on all of those platforms. And even better, it's not cross-browser. You don't have to worry about being compatible with Internet Explorer or Safari. And as a bonus, that means you can use a whole bunch of features in the web that aren't yet web standard. So things like web components and CSS grid, asynchronous generators. There's a whole bunch of features that Chrome implements that you can use to build your app with Electron, because you don't have to worry about being compatible with other browsers. And the best part is you already have all of the tools that you need to get started building an Electron app. If you know how to build a website, and I saw all of you raise your hands that you'd built a website before, so I'm pretty sure if you've done it before, then you know how to do it. You already know how to use Electron. And 65% of developers know how to write JavaScript. That same thing isn't true of .NET or GTK or Cocoa. So there's a lot of available talent to build these sorts of apps. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, well, it was enough to convince all of these people that you might have heard. I wrote this slide last week, so GitHub and Microsoft are sort of now the same company, but Slack, we depend on Electron to build the app that all of our users use that is critical to our business. Google Hangouts chat, Microsoft Teams, Skype, WhatsApp from Facebook, all of those apps that you might have used are built on Electron. So these companies rely on Electron for their businesses. There are a lot of great reasons to use Electron, but it's not a panacea. There are some great reasons why you might want to use a different tool. So if your app doesn't use any of the features of the operating system, those powerful features that you get access to with Electron, if everything that your app needs is already in the web platform, you might want to take a look at PWAs, or progressive web apps. Those deserve a whole talk to themselves, but in brief, you can get an icon on the desktop and a separate window outside of the browser without going through all of the hassle of shipping an executable to your users and having to keep that up to date. So you might want to check that out. And if you're building an app that only has to target one platform, if you only need to target Mac or only Windows and you don't need to build a cross-platform app, you might have better experience with tools that are specifically targeted to that platform and are built just for that. So now that I've convinced you to try out building a desktop app with Electron, you might be asking, well, how do I get started then? And the good news is that it's really easy and you already know how. So just to show that it's that easy, I'm going to do a quick demo here. So I'm going to clone the Electron Quick Start repository in Git. I'm going to cd into that directory, run npm install. And then I'm just going to run npm start. Oh, it appeared on the wrong screen. Here it is. So just like that, I already have a web app, an Electron app up and running. I can open the developer tools, and it's just like building a web app. So I can edit this text. Oh, you really can't see it on that screen, but that font's nice and big. So that was less than 30 seconds, and I already have a web app, an Electron app up and running. It's just web content. So Electron combines the core of Chromium, the open source web browser built by Google, and the Node.js runtime and access to nearly 700,000 packages on NPM to help you build the things that you want to build by standing on the shoulders of giants. And building a desktop app gives you power. It helps users to find your app and to keep using your app, and you already know how to do it. If you want to know more, you can get the slides after the talk. I won't make you write down these links, but you can go to our website. electronjs.org has fantastic documentation, and it's translated into a lot of different languages, although not, sadly, Romanian yet. So if you want to help out translating, we would love your help. All of our development happens in the open on github.com/electron/electron, so you can see all of the commits that are going in, file an issue, get help, and that's just a link to these slides. So thanks. There'll be a Q&A afterwards on level 1 if you want to come and ask me any questions about Electron or Slack or about building video games. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. This is fantastic. And very brave to do a live demo, so I always appreciate that. And this was one of the first ones I've seen that didn't crash and burn, so that worked actually really well. So, but I think you had no internet, so you did it run locally, or did you run it with internet connectivity?
It's run live.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay, that is indeed very brave. Congratulations, and thank you
very
very much for coming here. And as he said, he's on the Q&A stage right after this, so please go and ask him questions if you have.